Troublesome Engines. Ever since Thomas the Tank Engine had gotten his own branch line after rescuing James after his accident with the trucks, Henry and Gordon had felt lonely. They missed him very much. They had more work to do too. They had to fetch their own trains, and they didn't like that at all. James was grumbling too.
We get no rest! We get no rest!
You're lazy and slag! You're lazy and slag!
Altogether, the engines were causing the Fat Controller a great deal of trouble. The big stations at both ends of the line each have a turntable. The Fat Controller had them made so that Edward, Henry, Gordon and James can be turned around. It is dangerous for tender engines to go fast backwards. Tank engines don't need turntables. They can go just as well backwards and forwards. But if you had heard Gordon talking a short while ago, you would have thought that the Fat Controller had given him a tender just to show how important he was.
You don't understand, little Thomas. We tender engines have a position to uphold. You haven't a tender, and that makes a difference. So it doesn't matter where you go. But we are important. And for the Fat Controller to make us shunt trucks, fetch coaches, and go on some of those dirty sidings, well, it's not the proper thing.
When Gordon arrived at Vickerstown, he waited until all the passengers had got out, and then, groaning and grumbling, he shunted the coaches to another platform.
Disgraceful! Disgraceful!
Gordon hissed as he moved onto the turntable. The turntable was in a windy place. It was only just big enough for Gordon, and if he was not on it just right, he put it out of balance and made it difficult to turn. Today, Gordon was in a bad temper, and the wind was blowing fiercely. His driver tried to make him stop in the right place. Backwards and forwards they went, but Gordon wasn't trying. At last, Gordon's driver gave up. The fireman tried to turn the handle, but Gordon's weight and the strong wind prevented him. The driver, some plate layers, and the fireman all tried together.
It's no good, Gordon. Your tender upsets the balance. Now, if you were a nice tank engine, you'd be alright. Now, you will have to pull the next train backwards.
Hey look, come quick. There's a new tank engine.
Oh, it's only Gordon back to front.
Oh, so it is. What a swizz.
Could this day get any worse?
Hello, Gordon. Playing tank engine, I see. Sensible engine. Take my advice. Scrap your tender and have a nice bunker instead.
Sucks to be you, Gordon.
Take care, little James. You might stick too.
No fear. I'm not as fat as you. Oh dear, I mustn't stink.
James stopped on just the right place to balance the turntable. It could now swing easily.
Is it just me or is this table turning faster? Ah, nuts.
I could watch this all day. Well. Are you playing roundabouts, little James?
That night, the three engines had an indignation meeting.
It's shameful to treat tender engines like this, it really is. First Henry gets whooshed by an elephant.
Gordon has to go backwards and people call him a tank engine.
And James spins around like a top and everyone laughs at us.
And also, let's not forget that the Fat Controller makes a shunt in.
Dirty
Silence!
Ugh.
Now listen carefully. We'll do it tomorrow. The Fat Controller will look silly.
The next morning, as the Fat Controller arrived at Knapford, he heard an extraordinary noise. The passengers were angry.
Oh dear. Excuse me, Richard. What's going on here?
There's trouble in the shed, sir. Henry is sulking, there's no train, and the passengers are saying this is a bad railway.
Indeed. We cannot allow that. Will you quieten the passengers, please? I will go and speak to Henry. Come along, Henry. It's time your train was ready.
Henry's going nowhere. We won't shunt like common tank engines, sir. That was Thomas's job. We are important tender engines. You fetch our coaches, and we will pull them. Tender engines don't shunt!
Oh, indeed. We'll see about that. Engines on my railway do as they are told. The yard has never been the same since Thomas left to run his branch line.
Edward was shunting at Wellsworth when the Fat Controller came up.
Leave those trucks, please, Edward. I want you to push coaches for me in the yard.
Thank you, sir. That will be a nice change.
That's a good engine. Off you go then.
So Edward found coaches for the three engines, and that day, the trains ran as usual. Later, after the day's work was done, Edward puffed to the sheds feeling rather pleased with his work. But Henry, Gordon and James did not look happy at all.
Good evening, you three. Everything all right?
No, everything is not alright.
Oh, why?
Well, Edward, you've been shunting our trains today, but you're a tender engine, and tender engines don't shunt.
That's just rubbish, Henry. Of course tender engines shan't.
Of course you would think that. And if that's the case, I don't think you're a proper tender engine at all.
Not a proper tender engine, let me tell you.
Oh, be quiet and go to sleep.
But Edward felt quite hurt. The next morning, when the Fat Controller came, Edward looked unhappy. Gordon came clanking past, hissing rudely.
Not again.
Bless me, what a noise!
They all hiss me, sir. They say tender engines don't shunt. And last night, they said I'm not a proper tender engine.
Oh no, Edward, you are. And I'm proud of you. Tender engines do shunt. But all the same, you'd be happier in your own yard. We need a tank engine here. Now, let's see. No, he's too big.
Oh man.
No, he's too small.
Excuse me?
I don't even know what to say. Aha! Perfect!
At last, he saw a smart little green engine with 4 wheels.
That's the one. If I choose you, will you work hard?
Oh, sir. Yes, sir.
That's a good engine. I'll call you... I think I'll call you... Percy. Do you like that name?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Edward, this is Percy, our new tank engine. Will you show him everything?
Percy soon learned what he had to do, and they had a happy afternoon. Once Henry came by hissing as usual when...
How beautifully you wished him! I can't wish like that!
Oh, that's nothing. You should hear them in the workshops. You have to wish loudly to make yourself heard.
The next morning, when Henry, Gordon and James woke up, they realised their crew hadn't come yet.
Wait, where are our crews? Our trains are due out soon.
Well, Gordon, I can answer that. They are not coming.
What?
I've heard that you've been extremely rude to Edward, saying he's not a real tender engine because he shunted your trains. And I can't have that sort of attitude on my railway. So as a punishment, you three are being shut up until further notice.
What?
Enough! Now, if you excuse me, I must speak to Thomas, Edward and Percy.
Meanwhile, Thomas arrived.
The back controller sent for me. I expect he wants help.
Shush. Here he comes.
Well done, Thomas. You've been quick. Listen, Henry, Gordon and James are sulking. They say they won't shunt like common tank engines, so I've shut them up, and I want you both to run the main line.
Come on, tank engine indeed. We'll show them.
And Percy here will help too.
Oh, yes, sir. Please, sir.
Edward and Thomas worked the main line. Starting at opposite ends, they pulled the trains, whistling cheerfully to each other as they passed. Percy sometimes puffed along the branch line. Thomas was anxious, but both driver and guard promised to take care of Annie and Clarabelle. There were fewer trains, but the passengers didn't mind. They knew the three other engines were having a lesson. Henry, Gordon and James stayed shut in the shed and were cold, lonely and miserable. They wished now they hadn't been so silly. They were shut up for several days. At last, after a whole week, the Fat Controller came by.
I hope you are sorry and understand you are not so important after all. Thomas, Edward and Percy have worked the line very nicely. They need a change, and I will let you out if you promise to be good.
Yes, sir.
We will.
That's right. But please remember that this no shunting nonsense must stop.
He then told Edward, Thomas and Percy that they could go and play on the branch line for a few days. They ran off happily, and Thomas found Annie and Clarabelle at a siding at Knapford. The two coaches were so pleased to see Thomas again, and he took them for a run at once. Edward and Percy played with trucks.
That really hurt.
The trucks screamed as they were pushed into their proper sidings, but the two engines laughed and went on shunting till the trucks were tightly arranged. Next, Edward took some empty trucks to the quarry, and Percy was left alone. Percy didn't mind that a bit. He liked watching trains and being cheeky to the engines.
Hurry, hurry, hurry!
After a while, Percy took some trucks over the main line to another siding. When they were tidy, he ran onto the main line again and waited for the signalman to set the points so that he could cross back to the yard. Edward had warned Percy,
Be careful on the main line. Whistle to tell the signalman you're there.
but Percy didn't remember to whistle. The signalman was so busy, he forgot about him. Bells rang in the signal box. The man answered saying the line was clear, and set the points for the next train. Percy waited and waited. The points were still against him. He looked along the main line, and rushing straight towards him was Gordon with the express!
What the? Oh no! Back, Percy! Back!
But Percy's wheels wouldn't turn quickly. Gordon was coming so fast that it seemed he couldn't stop. With nothing else to do, Percy just waited for the crash. His driver and fireman jumped out.
Oh, get out of my way!
Percy opened his eyes. Gordon had stopped with Percy's buffers a few inches from his own. But Percy had begun to move.
I won't stay here. I'll run away.
He was soon clear of the station and running as fast as he could. He went through Edward Station and was so frightened that he ran right up Gordon's Hill without stopping. He was tired then and wanted to stop, but he couldn't. He had no driver to shut off steam and to apply the brakes.
Oh, I shall have to run till my wheels wear out. Oh dear. Oh dear. I want to stop. I want to stop.
Huh? I know just what you want, little Percy.
The signalman set the points, and Percy puffed wearily onto a nice empty siding, ending in a bank of earth. Percy was too tired now to care where he went.
I want to stop. I have stopped.
Never mind, Percy. You shall have a nice drink and some coal, and then you'll feel better.
Well, little Percy, I can't say that you're a fine sight at the moment. But I can say this. You started so quickly that you stopped a nasty accident. Well done!
I'm sorry I was so cheeky. You were clever to stop.
Percy and Gordon are now friends. And soon he made friends with Henry and James too. He now works in the yard and finds coaches for the trains. He is still cheeky because he's that sort of engine. But he is always most careful when he goes on the main line.